Hi everyone, I welcome you all to the session. In the last session that we have seen about the functions of human resource management, in which that we have seen the two core functional activities of human resource management. That is, the first one is managerial function. The second is operative function. In managerial function that we have seen the planning, organizing, directing, coordinating and controlling. In the second operative function, which is specifically done by the human resource manager, in which that we have seen the first operative function, recruitment. In today's session that we are going to discuss about the operative function, selection, which is considered to be the most important operative function among human resource manager, in which we are going to discuss about the meaning and definition of selection. Followed with this, that we are going to discuss about the importance of selection and objectives of selection. Further, I have planned to discuss about the selection process, and I also plan to discuss about the effectiveness of recruitment and selection. Finally, in this session that we are going to discuss about the barriers of selection. First, let us move on to see the meaning of selection. Actually, as like recruitment, selection is also a process. Picking the individual who have relevant qualification to fill the job in an organization. If we look the selection beyond the meaning, it is nothing but the happy balance between the candidate. That means the employee who is willing to join in the organization, his needs and the organization requirement. This happy balance is meant as selection. Now let us see the definition which was given by the author Weyrich Kunz. Selecting manager is choosing among the candidate the one who best meets the position requirement. Objectives of selection. The first objective is to identify the qualified potential candidate for the job. The second objective is to sort out the candidates who have the likelihood to taste the success in the job. It means the selection reviews the candidate and it identifies the people who have the thirst to success. The third objective is to identify the calibered candidates for the organization. The fourth objective is to reduce the burden of the interviewer. Actually, the interviewer has to go on with each and individual candidate. This selection reduces the burden of interviewer and it makes the qualified potential candidates to move on to the interviewing. Finally, the last objective is to ensure the recruitment success. It depends upon the selection. Importance of selection. I would like to explain the importance of selection with 4 important reasons. The first one is reduce the applicant number. Actually, the recruitment is a pool where we are sourcing the potential applicants. Here in the selection, we are choosing the selected candidates as qualified candidates being selected, whereas unqualified candidate is being rejected. So, reducing the number of applicants is possible over there in selection. The second most important reason is actually it reduces the labor turnover. We are choosing only the most potential candidate for the job. So automatically the retention will be more than the labor turnover. The third reason is assessment. Actually, we are assessing the candidate towards the character, behavior, followed the values and ethics. This represents the person's characteristics which moves the person to individual career growth and also for the organization welfare. When we take the fourth reason, which is time dimension, actually a good selection procedure will eliminate the time consumption which has taken for an individual candidate. I have given the 4 reasons which represents about the importance of selection. Now let us see the selection process. That we had 8 steps over there in selection process. In each steps, the candidate potentiality and capability will be assessed in different aspect. I would like to list out the 8 steps. The first one is resume or CV review. The second one is screening interview. The third one is application blank. The fourth one is selection test. The fifth one is selection interview. The sixth one is medical examination. The seventh one is reference check. And finally, the eighth one is hiring decision. That every candidate, whoever applied, has to start from step 1 and followed with all these steps, they have to reach the 8th step. Those candidates who have reached the 8th step will be placed in the position. That I would like to tell you that all the candidates will not reach the 8th step. It doesn't mean that those candidates are not qualified. Actually, they may be qualified, but there may be an imbalance between the individual need and the organization need. Now let us move on to explain each and every step. The first one is resume or CV review. In this, the candidate's the qualified paper which he has used and the eligible handwriting has been reviewed, which represents about the favorable impression for the candidate. The second one, a screening interview, which we used to say as preliminary interview. In this interview, the person's previous experience and the candidate's family background will be screened out, which helps to review the potentiality of the candidate. The third one is application blank. The application blank reveals about the candidate. The fourth one is about the selection test, which is a very essential part to review the candidate. That we had 4 standard objective measures to measure the candidate. The first one is intelligence test. In this, the intelligence of the candidate will be assessed. The second one is aptitude test, where the candidate's mathematical accuracy will be tested. The other 2 tests is achievement test and personality test. This test has to be undergone where the potentiality of the candidate will be reviewed thoroughly. This will lead the person to move on to the next step, selection interview. In this, the candidates will be reviewed specifically towards the subject knowledge to perform in the job. Here it may be a direct interview or it may be an indirect interview. I would like to tell an example for the direct interview. The panel members will interview the candidates, which is an example for the direct interview. The indirect interview may also be conducted to review the potential of the candidate. The next step is medical examination, where the candidate's physical and mental fitness will be checked over there in this medical examination. This represents about the candidate's capability and strength to do the job. Reference check, which represents about the goodwill of the person. This reference check may be done towards the educational institution where the candidate studied over. Followed with this, the final stage is the 8th stage, where the hiring decision will be taken in the 8th stage. The candidates who has to reach the 8th stage to place in the position. Recruitment and selection are the 2 important operative functions. I would like to give you 2 important strategies for effective employee recruitment and selection. One for recruitment and other one for the selection. The first one for recruitment, improve the quality of hires. Actually, a human resource manager will use the same methodology and process for recruiting. That has to be changed. He has to implement new technologies to hire the candidate. He has to attract the qualified candidates so that it leads for the effective selection. The second, for the selection, I would like to give a strategy for selection. They have to choose the candidate who fit to the organization culture. How to find the candidates like that? We have to assess the candidate who have their beliefs, values coincide with the organization culture, so that they can reduce the labor turnover and they can increase the retention of the employees back to the organization. That helps to build a strong employee brand. Now it's time to see the barriers of selection. There are n number of barriers in selection. I would like to explain the most important barriers in selection. The first one is ineffective recruitment. A human resource manager should be keen on recruitment process and recruitment aspect in selecting the potential candidate for the job. This will lead for the major improvement for the selection. Otherwise, it will become a major barrier for not to choose the right candidate. The second one is perception. Actually, the perspective is different from perception. Perspective is differ from one individual to another individual. Whereas the perception, the candidate, the person who is going to choose the candidate has to be very perceive over there among a good positive aspect. Otherwise, this perception will be a major barrier for selection. The third barrier is stereotype. Actually, is a common error. I would like to give an example. All the civil engineers are boring. If this kind of aspect is there in the mindset of selection person, this will become a major barrier. The person will not choose the candidate who is with the civil engineer. So this is a major barrier for not to go on with a good selection. The last one is cost and time. Actually, the cost and time is also a major barrier for selection. If an organization is not willing to spend more cost on selection, then he can't choose the right person for the job. At the same time, the organization is not patiently waiting for the selection process to be completed, then it will also become a major problem. So recruitment and selection is the major aspect which has to be done. That too, some of the barriers which is having over there in selection has to be rectified. Otherwise, we can't place the right person in the right job. That we came to the end of the session. In today's session that we have seen about the second operative function, selection. We have seen about the meaning, definition of selection, that we have discussed about the objectives and importance of selection. Followed with this, that we have discussed more about the selection process, and we also discussed about the effective recruitment and selection strategies. Finally, we have seen about the barriers of selection. In the upcoming session that we are going to discuss about the third operative function, compensation, in which we are going to discuss about the types and principles of compensation. Thank you.